What's up, guys? Give me a second. Man, we're having tech difficulties. My sound dropped out. You guys hear me?
Hey, Shane.
Hey, what's up,
Yeah,
dude?
you had a few technical difficulties, you said?
Oh, just not a few. It was going crazy. Here's the worst part, though. I'll wait and tell you.
Yeah, it's definitely you could tell the whole room. Ugh. Hey, Lacey.
Hey, hey.
Hey, August. Randy, what's
Yeah,
up?
Feeling the love, guys. Thank you.
Good show, guys.
thank you. It would have been. We'll work all the tech stuff out. We had some issues, and then my sound dropped out like midway through. But that wasn't the crazy part. My edible kicked in midway through too, so I couldn't tell if it was my edible or if it was really sound. So I was like, "Wait, what's going on? Am I just that high and I can't hear anything?" Oh my god! And then I was like, "No, the sound did drop out. Let me fix that shit." I was trying to figure out. Oh shit! I took way too much. Oh, so good times, right?
So
That's
that's why you were smiling so nicely.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the problem with gummies, man. That's the problem with gummies. They can hit too late.
yeah. I had to take it because my hip. I'm trying not to smoke anymore than that. But my hip's got to be replaced, and like a long time ago, and I still haven't done it. So I'm gonna get it done when I get back from UFO Congress. And I've been hurting because I'm also jet lagged. I just got home yesterday, so I'm sitting there tired as hell on there. And then
I know your pain.
and then I took those gummies. And yeah, all I know is
I
hey,
had my hip replaced, man. My recovery time was really fast.
yeah, that's what
Shane.
they tell me. Here's the deal. I'm just scared because of the drugs they'll put in my body. And I just, and in my head
I,
is just always that chance that I lose everything because
I went cold, man. I did it. I did it fucking with no drugs, man. I won't take pain medication. I won't go there. Just like you, I want to stay clean, man.
good, man. Only way to go.
I
Hey,
came
Shane, you
home
can send
after
me
my
a.
back surgery with
Co-host, I'll send you a
nothing.
co-host, Chase.
Yeah, you can send me a. I think you already did, and I think I tried to accept it, but it's like.
No, I was gonna bring in as co-host and kick you out of the room, ban you.
Cannabis is the only thing I use, Shane.
Chuck's in here now. Yeah, cannabis is the only thing I use for my hip replacement. So
Can I tell Chuck? I just want to thank you, Chuck, man. You've been this bright light, and I'm just like sad that every time you've gotten close to the truth, somebody seems to always derail you, man. I just have nothing but love for you, Chuck. Thank you for everything you've done.
Chuck, I sent you an invite. You have it should be on your screen. If you accept that as speaker, or you can actually
Deny it as speaker if you want. I mean. Where's Mike and there's Mike. Where's Toby?
we don't want Mike up in the speaker. I don't know. I don't care if it's his podcast or not. This is my house.
Chuck has had his police report changed and lost his job, and he's just continued on. So I'm just proud of him that he's never given up, and I just want to thank him for continue on this path.
Can you get Chuck up here, Chase? Maybe it's my end. It's messed up.
I invited him. He just has to accept it or request. Yeah, like magic.
Wait a second. If you guys are in here, who's running the Roswell UFO Symposium podcast?
Dude, it was
That's some
supposed to be
crazy
Chase,
stuff.
bro, but I guess I mean I don't need the numbers. I'm just here for the love, so.
Yeah, Chase.
Was I supposed to be the Roswell?
Yeah, you were supposed to co-host as that. No one wants you, Chase. We want the Roswell. You're fine, buddy. We'll just keep it like this. I got him coming up here as co-host. So, hey, Mike, yours, Toby. Baby.
He's coming. He said he quits, so.
Man, it was all kinds of crazy. The sound just dropped out on me. And here's the crazy
It's
part: I
all
had
right,
to take
bro.
some edibles.
It's all right, bro.
And
We'll talk about it. I've got notes. Don't worry about it.
okay.
Okay, you
Oh,
guys
great.
can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Chuck.
Okay,
Check.
good. All right.
Chuck, I just want to thank you for everything you've done, and I know people have tried to stop you from spreading the truth, and thank you for forging forward and continuing on, man. God bless you, and thank you for everything you've done, sir.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. I think once you get hooked on it, you can't stop. And the more you learn, the more you strive to learn more. It's I don't want to say it's an obsession, but it can be. So you have to be careful.
Yeah, I know that for me, it became after I saw my first one, it became just that's all I did: read, think about, watch TV shows about, and sometimes it can get really unhealthy too.
Well, yeah, and I think the issue with me that is different than other people is for some reason all my life I've actually known, or I've always had an idea of something like this, and I've always been comfortable with it too. I can't tell you why, but out of 6 kids in our family, me and my sister Debbie, became the UFO investigators. Um, don't know, but it's weird. I'm not. I used to go out by myself because I'd be afraid to put someone else's life at risk. So I'd go out by myself, running these investigations, going out late at night. And I tell my wife, okay, this is a general area I'll be going. If I'm not back by 4 a.m. or 3 a.m., call the cops. So, but I always felt comfortable too. So I don't know. I can't explain it. Scary.
I actually I had a question that I didn't ask on the podcast, Chuck, which is so recently on Mind Escape, I had Dr. Rick Strassman. I don't know if you know who he is. He wrote this book called DMT, the Spirit Molecule, and he was the first person that the U.S. government let test DMT, dimethyltryptamine, on patients, and he works at the University of New Mexico. But he was telling me, because I asked him if he ever had a UFO um, experience, and he was saying no. But when he was driving through Roswell, uh, one time he said he saw a cow that was missing its head, that was completely drained of all blood, and I didn't know if that was a mutilation, or if does that sound like a mutilation to you, or
um, I've now out of all the cases that I've done, the head's always been there, but the one denominator with all my cases is always the missing blood. Even when you go back to that one I was telling you about, like I think it was like 1896 or whatever, out of Missouri, that was missing blood too. So that is the common denominator. The cuts, uh, they may be different. Sometimes they kind of resemble from cow to cow. If I did a case in um, to Walsenburg, Colorado, a few years ago, where 8 animals were mutilated within about a week. All 8 animals from 3 ranches had the same type of cuts. Believe it or not, they were all lying on the same side. I can't remember. I think it was on the left side, and they were all facing east to west. So when you start seeing things like that, uh, it makes you wonder. But I've never had the missing head. The one that I did have that was the most dramatic was the head was there, the leg, front and back legs were there, and just the spine and a rib cage, and the ears were cut off of the head, and I took the head down and had it analyzed at the Colorado State University Veterinary Lab so they could look at the cut marks from the ear, and they said they couldn't say it was surgical, but they said it didn't look like it was bitten off. But I mean, both ears were just cored out, just cut like you would cut with with a razor blade or something. Just bizarre, and no blood anywhere, even though the whole body was missing. Just the bones were there, except for the legs. The legs had hair on it. The head was intact. The tongue was removed and the ears were gone. So Yes, yeah, absolutely. Could
What's what's
could
y-
be
what's
missing.
what's your take on, like, what do you think's happening with all these mutilations? Like, do you have a theory or a hypothesis that's different than other people, or?
Well, other people, and the reason why I think I took over for Chris O'Brien, because Chris O'Brien started coming out saying it was the military or someone within our government, and I'm not quite sure if he actually believes that or he was told to say that. But once he started saying that, he kind of got out of the limelight a bit. Of course, Linda Moulton Howe, I think she's in her 80s now, and but so she's not getting out there anymore. But out of all the cases that I've investigated, and really, George Knapp out of Las Vegas years and years ago said, and this was probably a decade ago, that he researched it. He came to the conclusion that there had been over 10,000 cases since 1967. And out of all the 10,000 cases that were investigated by law enforcement, no one has ever been caught or convicted of doing the animal mutilation. And that's true with every one of my cases. I've had law enforcement involved, county usually, nothing in the city, and they've never found evidence of direct that it was a human. Tire tracks, strap marks around the animal from where it was taken or anything like that. Matter of fact, that's how I got fired from the sheriff's department. Now, don't feel too bad about me being I was a reserve deputy for 8 years, but I was also a microchip designer and family guy. So I was juggling uh, and UFO stuff at the time too. So it was getting to a point where I needed to stop doing the sheriff's stuff because I was getting more involved in UFO stuff, and you only have so many hours, in a month to be able to do everything. But we had two horses.
Did they have a problem with you, like, looking at that subject?
Oh yeah, well there was a commander, one particular commander in the department that didn't like the fact that I was a UFO investigator. He thought that it was, demeaningful to the department. These are these older guys, and I really have no idea why they think that way. Some departments do, some departments don't. They're very, very open about it. I think this guy just had it out for me, and I'm a volunteer. I didn't get
Hey,
paid,
Chuck,
so
you're kind of hot.
I'm kind of what?
Hot.
Hot?
He's just trolling. You can continue,
Oh,
Chuck. Sorry.
oh, I'm kind of hot.
No. They changed Chuck's report. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, what they did was, uh, what happened is we had two horses that were mutilated, and so I went and investigated, and they were both lying down on the same side. They were pointing east to west also, which that's where the 37th parallel theory came from, that the book was written about. There's a lot of commonalities with east to west, but we can go into that later. The two other animals on the ranch had experienced the mutilation. One was the dog, and one was another horse. The dog had marks on it. The horse had marks on it also. Uh, the horse would never go back out in the pasture again, and the dog had to go into the vet because it had thyroid problems after that. Really interesting stuff. But when I saw it, there was absolutely no evidence that an animal did it, and there was no evidence that a human did it. So my department, because it's in El Paso County, it happened in my county, my department had sent out two deputies to look at it. Now, a lot of the sheriff's departments, what they do is they'll train a couple of people. It's only like a 1 or 2 week course on animal cruelty. And so anytime there's a at farms or ranches, they send out those deputies that were schooled in animal cruelty, and they'll go out and they'll look for any evidence pertaining to animal cruelty. Now, animal cruelty is when a human does something right, hurts an animal or kills an animal. Animal cruelty does not depend on an animal killing another animal, unless the animal that kills the other animal was trained by someone to do it, that would be animal cruelty. But just a bear or a mountain lion, or a wolf, that's not called animal cruelty. That's just predator, predator kill. So there was no evidence that there was any other animal, no tracks, no anything. The bodies are just lying there. There was no scuff marks from the limbs ever moving while they were dying. That's another a site that you look at first that determines it's a true animal mutilation. Is there's no movement at all, as when the animal dies. It's as if the animal is just placed there right in the ground. So I'm looking at all that, and then Fox News from Denver comes out and they investigate it too, and they interviewed me, and without me knowing about it, the Fox News reporter went to my PR person at the sheriff's department, interviewed them. Now I said it was animal cruelty, even though a human didn't do it. I said, well, it's not a press, so you can block that out. I found no evidence that it was a human, but the only thing left is you just have to say animal cruelty, because it's not, and that's what deputies do. So the two deputies that went out and looked at it, they could find no evidence that another animal killed it. So they said animal cruelty on their case report. Well, when Fox News interviewed the PR person for the sheriff's department, she said, oh no, it was killed by a predator, even though the case report clearly said it was not. She either lied on camera or she never read the case report. She just assumed because she's all that for whatever reason. Well, when they aired that clip, I was contradicting my own department, which put me on the shit list basically. And when I was called in to explain myself, I said, I'm not explaining myself, I'm correct. Your person's wrong. Well, she's a lieutenant. She's your, she's, blah, blah, blah. She has rank over you. I go, I don't care. She could, I don't care if she's a sheriff, She was wrong. Yeah. And she lied, or she never read the case report, because this is the case report. And you can't talk that way. And I said, I am talking to you. And I have to understand that I was a volunteer. So I had no problem with, if they fired me, I would lose no salary, pension, no nothing, right? And I was already at the point where I was running out of personal time, working so many hours for the sheriff's department and do my UFO investigations and still go to work and be a good father. So when my commander was trying to browbeat me, or what do they call it, bow beat you, I gave it right back to him, and I basically told him that, you don't know what the hell you're talking about, and I shouldn't even be here. Well, he didn't like it, so I got fired, basically. But I was right. And the deputies were right too, because there's no evidence that an animal killed those two horses. There was no evidence that a human did it. But the sheriff's department only has two categories, either an animal or human. They don't have a UFO category, so they have to put something, or they put unresolved open case. Well, they don't like open cases. They like to close the cases. Some departments, other departments will keep it open if they clearly don't have evidence one way or the other. But you learn all that.
Yeah, thank
Still
you,
here.
Chuck.
Sorry about that. Let's get over to Randy. Go ahead, and then we'll get to Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. Like I said, not giving up. You had done an investigation on Alien Highway on the east, where you had found a heat source in a mountain where UFOs had been flying into. It looked like they had done some either mining or explosive. Can you speak more on that?
We weren't on the East Coast for Alien Highway. So
I thought you had found like a heat source on a mountainside where.
Oh, yes. Okay. That was near Area 51. Okay, and we were just not outside Area 51, but God, I can't remember the town. But we were at an abandoned military base that was a few miles outside of Area 51's West Gate or whatever the heck it was, and it was really interesting because my son and I, what happened was this base had been abandoned, and And then next to some of the structures was a dugout, a large dugout, where they were digging out the underground facility that was at that base. So we're in that dugout, with our vehicles, and because there was places where something could hide in there, because there were still structures that were embedded inside the ground, which was really underground. But so my son had the flare, and we're walking. We're just kind of walking at night, and I basically told the production crew, I go, "This would be a great place to shoot a segment like this and walk around." And somebody says that there's some creature running around out here, and if we're going to find a creature that's in this general area, most likely it might be in here, because there's a lot of places it can hide, because there's structures still in this area, like embedded in the sidewalls of this giant crevice, right, or hole. And my son sees an image, and we're looking at it. He's seeing an image off in a distance of a figure just briefly running behind a mound of dirt way off in a distance. And I'm going, well, that's got to be so and so, our showrunner, because he went off to take a pee, and we look over, and Dan goes, "No, I think he's over there to the right." And hands this didn't make it into the movie, the TV show, but he pans to the right with the flare, and he can see a figure of a human, and you can see the water coming out where he was peeing. So we knew it wasn't him, and there was nobody else in there, because the other guy, the director, was with us, and the cameraman was with us, and everybody else was on the other side of the base inside a structure filming Heather Taddy. She was doing a ghost investigation in the structure. So Dad and I looked at each other and goes, "Holy shit!" And we took off running towards it. And once we ran about maybe 25, maybe 30 yards, and where that hill was, where it ducked behind, and we never found it after that. But we clearly saw something, and we were able to debunk it, because the people that we were with, we knew where they were. It was pretty cool, yet scary. I had no idea what it was.
Did it change into a wolf or something for
No.
a
Now that was the Skinwalker Ranch. That was the Skinwalker Ranch episode where I had set up some night. Well, they're what they are is the Moultrie game cameras, and they shoot night vision. And we set up some couple cameras in this area where the witness called it a crossroads, where he claimed he had seen a Skinwalker. Actually, he seen what looked like a giant wolf just sitting in the middle of the road. And there was another time where he saw a Native American elder walking along the side of the same road. So we put cameras there, and when we went back to look at the cameras the next day, generally with a game camera, and if you're hunters know this, right? If you're shooting video, as soon as the animal walks into view of the camera or view of the cross beam, it's a sonar beam that fans out like a V, right? And as soon as it hits that sonar beam, the camera turns on, and you see the animal walk from the left side all the way through the right side. That's how it works. Well, we put this camera up, and all of a sudden the animal just appears in front of the camera, running down the street, and then it just leaves the peripheral of the lens on the right side, but it just appeared. That's not how game cameras work. Animals just don't appear unless you're shooting photo. We were shooting video, so the video should have seen the animal come in to scene or into the frame of view and go out of the frame of view, but it just popped up in the middle. That was an awesome anomaly. And out of all the times I've ever used game cameras, I've never seen that before. The animals always walk in and walk out, So that was pretty cool. That was outside the Skinwalker Ranch. You don't have to be in the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah for anomalies. You don't need to be that. Matter of fact, I was disappointed. We drove up to the entrance of the Skinwalker Ranch. That's why I never watched the TV show. But the cameras at the Skinwalker Ranch are less advanced than the cameras my own security cameras here at my house. You know, these cameras looked like they were knockoffs from Radio Shack. And my security cameras in my house were better than the cameras at the Skinwalker Ranch. And then I had seen the cameras at the west gate of Area 51 years ago, years before that, when I shot an episode for Science Channel, Unexplained Files Season 2. We went to the west gate of Area 51. And when I saw those cameras and that technology, that was way cool. That was very advanced technology. You would expect to see that to Skinwalker. And then once again, too, when I saw the cameras, so the cameras at the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah are pointing out to look for trespassers. Okay. Well, I didn't think much about it, but I go, yeah, that would kind of make sense. Okay. When I saw the cameras at the Bradshaw Ranch over by Sedona, the cameras were pointing in. They weren't pointing out looking for trespassers. They were pointing in as if something was going to happen inside the ranch. That was way cool. And those cameras were very advanced. So I wasn't really that impressed with Skinwalker Ranch.
Hey, go ahead, Matt. What do you got?
So, a couple things. I'm in Sedona right now. So I'm like hanging out in Sedona. I just like hung out with Melinda Leslie all day. And yesterday we hung out. So when you talk about the Bradshaw Ranch, that's pretty cool. But the reason I raised my hand, I'm going to throw this. Did you happen to do a chemical forensic analysis on the horses that you suspected of possible mutilation? And the reason I ask this is because Eric Davis and Colm Kelleher, during their cattle mutilation investigation at Skinwalker Ranch, found enriched embalming fluid or formaldehyde. And I'm throwing this on the Jumbotron right now.
I'm glad you said that. You know, from the very first mutilation case I did way back in 2000, I don't know, it's 8 or 9 or whatever it was. You know, I took samples of the animal to Colorado State University for complete analysis. No, nothing was ever found. I was looking for any type of anomaly, something, you know, that caused the death of the animal. Matter of fact, they couldn't tell. What I learned from the very first samples was the animal was cut up after the animal was bled out. So they bleed out the animal first, and they cut it up, which tells me the animal's not suffering, because there was no hemorrhaging at all on any of the samples, and all the samples that I've given, to the vet or the lab since then, and then even a whole calf that I took in one time to have an analysis done. They never found any toxics at all. And that's one thing that I was always looking, or toxins, I'm sorry. Never found any toxins at all. So I have a little bit of a backstory on the Skinwalker Ranch. I don't know if I should share it or not, but I don't trust everything coming from that TV show.
This wasn't the TV show. This was NID's investigation.
Oh,
this is Colm
his.
Kelleher and Eric Davis. If you look at the top, I posted a link to the actual forensic analysis of one of these cattle, and I was curious about like if you had like data such as this.
No. Now I have heard of other people picking up some interesting things, but out of all the cases that I've had analysis done on, and one of the things I do look for is any type of toxins. I've never had anything like that. Now I'm not saying it didn't happen. There could be copycats out there. I don't know. All I can say is out of all the cases I've done, and my cases have been really, really interesting because the majority of them are all free grazing animals, and they're never injected with even steroids or anything like that. Maybe they get injected with a vitamin shot when they were calves, and that's about it. And that's the only time. And other than that, this is free grazing animal. There was other cases where people found micrometeorites on the hide. I've looked at for that multiple times, never saw that. Other investigators said they found fluorescence on the hide. Never seen that. I mean, it's pretty bad. You take a black light and a tarp, and there's a dead animal out there that's cut up, and you cover the animal up, and you climb under the tarp with a dead animal with
I
a,
bet that smells like shit.
it does.
Dude, are you wearing a respirator? I hope so.
You know what? I did at first, but the after I learned that
It's
nothing.
normalization of deviation. You know that, right?
But yeah, exactly. Um, because I've done some cases where I've never found any toxins at all, nothing from the lab. That no, after that point, no. But I do have a respirator, and I do have a bio suit, a cheap one that I always keep with me for those cases where um, you know.
Just get a paint respirator.
Well, yeah, I have a really
Um,
good one. I actually have a really good one that that has the filters in it, so it's a good respirator.
Chuck, could I ask a quick question?
Hmm.
In the medical analysis that was done on the mutilated animals, did they look for collapsed artery structures to indicate suction to be used for removing the blood?
Oh, that's a good question. The best we can, or the best I could do is when I took it to the veterinary lab, is just say, look for anything unusual because you really don't know how or why the animal was killed. So that's the best I could do is say, tell me and anything unusual compared to the other necropsies you've done on just regular animals that the ranchers bring in. And but they always tell me the unusual things off the record because everything that because they're professionals, so anything they find, that's not unusual, they'll put on paper. But no, the blood analysis, like I said, I had done a couple of different times, analysis and just how the cuts were made. If there's a cut on the animal, what I do is I pie cut it. So basically, the actual cut, the actual anomaly cut is there, and then I just do a cut on the outside, a 2-line or 2-cut. So when I send that in, they're actually looking at the anomaly cut itself, and I'm asking, what can you tell me about it? And no, and now for suction wise, there was when I took the one calf in, and you have to understand when you do animal mutilation investigations, you got to get out there. Hopefully, you can get out there within 24 to 32 hours. Because after about 32 hours, if it's during the wintertime, you get more time because there's no larvae, there's no flies. If it's hot and there's 90 degrees outside, within 24 hours, you got larvae in there. But I took the whole calf in, right? And basically, when I talked to the vet over the phone, I said, dude, just off the record, I can see your report here. What do you think? He goes, well, I opened it up. The tongue was missing. It appeared to have been cut out at the back of the throat. And the heart was collapsed. So it appears it was bled out, but there's no blood in the carcass itself, and some organs were missing. And it says it appears the organs were taken out through the hole in the 8 centimeter hole in the anal area. So something reached in there, took the organs out. The heart was still there, but it was collapsed, meaning it had bled out. And I asked him, I said, have you seen anything like that before in any other of your necropsies? And he says, no, I've never seen that before. This is the first time. Now, if he would have popped up and said, yeah, I see this all the time, then it's one thing. Uh, and and then I also asked him, what else can you do on this? And he goes, well, I don't have a lot of blood in here, so there's not a lot I can do. Where they put blood but I guess they could take whatever samples of the blood they had left to try and figure out. But I had to pay for all that, so I think it cost me a few hundred for the necropsy, and when everything comes out of your pocket, and you don't have any funding, you can only do so much.
Yeah, it's a bloody shame, mate. I mean, the government, in the interests of the public safety, should be doing all these analysis for you. No, it was one of the things I've never seen in any reports about whether they've analysed the actual wound area, removal area for like if you can imagine arteries that have been super collapsed, where they're sort of stuck together because there'd been some form. I've never heard anyone that's even investigated that avenue. You know what I mean?
Well, the cuts themselves, the first thing I was always looking for was cauterization from high heat, like a laser. And I never got that. And so it appeared that if it was cut, it was more like a suture type of cut, very, very clean. I had one vet tell me that it looked like, a surgical cut is how he described it. There was another time where one of my samples had a serrated cut that, I don't know if your mom ever had, or your wife or whoever had those serrated scissors, that cut little triangle things, on your material, but that's how that looked. But nothing ever cauterized, and nothing ever hemorrhaging. So if there were veins, or capillaries or whatever on the side of the cut itself, no, it looked fine. If they would have noticed something, and that's what they looked at it under, microscope for me to see if they could see any anomalies, and they basically said, no, it was just cut, no heat. I go, how about a cold laser? And they go, well, we don't know that much about cold lasers, and we don't know what a cold laser would do. So if you get us a cold laser and cut a piece of hide, I'm like, oh, that's not going to happen. So
Or an acoustic, or it could be a form of acoustic laser.
yeah. But the thing is, we're looking at, you have to, when you look at animal mutilations now, you have to forget about today's technology, because it really started years and years and years ago. I mean, the first mutilation that went public was in 1967, Snippy the horse. Well, Snippy wasn't really, the Snippy was not the horse. The horse's name was Lady. The media got it mistaken, but actually, so we just refer to as Snippy the horse, and that was in 1967 at the base of Blanca Peak in the San Luis Valley. That's the first one that kind of started people looking into this. Now you have to look at 1967 and say, did we have that technology then? What type of technology did we have in 1967 that would in cuts and stuff? Now I was mentioning on the podcast that I found an article from 1896 out of a newspaper in Missouri about 3 animals that were found void of blood after there was a UFO sighting. So I can trace back at least animals void of blood back to 1896. Now you look at, okay, did we have the technology in 1896 to drain the blood of an animal? Yeah.
Just so I can mention, I don't think it's any form of technology that we know or use. No, I think it's, for what it's worth, I think it's something else. I don't think it's human tech.
Well, you have to, because I'm very analytical, and so I look at everything from an analytical point of view. I have to debunk my own theories first before I can say it's paranormal. So when someone like you mentions all these different things, and some things I actually haven't checked because it takes money to do, and maybe I didn't think about it. I'm just thinking about particular things like viral or something chemical that were injected. I mean, we look for, any marks on the animal's hide. You pull the hide off, you look for any type of bruising on the muscle itself, like maybe, there were strap marks, or if someone hit it with a syringe, you would see some abrasion, see some type of mark. But, we haven't. But then again, too, I haven't been able to do that with every animal. You see, when you do animal mutilation investigations, you're with the rancher. The rancher may stand over your back and just watch you and say and basically say, you got 45 minutes or 50 minutes or whatever, an hour, and then I got to go on and do my chores, and you can't be on my property. So you're very limited in some cases. Other cases, the ranchers say, yeah, close the gate behind you when you're done, which gives me more time to do other things, which is look for evidence outside the animal. Because what I
Have
generally
you found? Oh, sorry, if I could just quickly ask, have you found evidence of relocation and impact where an animal may have been relocated because there's no marks around it, and or lifted by some means and dropped in location? Have you found any evidence of that?
Absolutely, and that's and that's my, actually, it's a theory that that all animal mutilation investigators do. The only difference between me personally and other mutilation investigators is they're not dropped. I've actually found enough evidence to prove to me that the animal is not dropped; it's placed. And how I can explain that is, so the animal's picked up at location A, it's taken to location B, and location B, they draw the blood out, which kills the animal. Then they cut it up, and they take whatever they want. Then they bring it to location C, which is in the general area of location A. It's like they're giving the animal back to the rancher. It's like, okay, I'm going to steal your car. I'm going to take the engine out, but the car's still registered to you, so I'm giving you the car back. They don't realize that the car's useless now, right? But they always put the animal back. I had one investigation out of all the ones I've done where I actually found, I was working with Matt Morgan, who was on my team at the time. And if you have enough time, I start at where the cow is, and then I do a spiral outwards, just a spiral outwards, and I go out, further and further. I look for any type of evidence that might be outside the animal, as far as I can go within reason. And we did a spiral at San Luis, Colorado, and I forget how many feet away it was, but it was, I don't know, 6 yards or so out of whatever it was. We found footprints that ended. So it was so cool. The animal, there was one set of footprints, and it was muddy because it just rained the day before, or when the cow was mutilated. You saw the footprints along the side of the fence, and it ended, and no footprints at all. And then there's the animal 60 yards away. So that was the only case out of all my cases that I actually found where they picked the animal up at. Okay, and then the animal was found. Now, when the animal's found dead, there's no movement at all. The animal's just laying there. The arm or the legs don't move down. You don't see any scuff marks. You see nothing on the ground. It's just laid there. So the animal didn't die there, because out of all the cases, if you go to kill an animal, it's going to struggle to try and survive. At least one of them, right? But none of them. It's just as if it was a fiberglass animal just laying on its side. Now, what I've learned over the period of different investigations is sometimes the animal is embedded in the ground a little bit more, as if there was a crater, like it came down hard. And some animals, the bones will be broken. The rib cage will be broken from the backbone. That happened a couple of times, and there'll be leg will be broken or something. But there's no movement where the leg can. It's just laying there broken, right? And it wasn't until one of my cases, I actually saw what looked like a crop circle. It looked like the animal was lying in a crop circle. It's the first time because of the vegetation, had been very flat, dirt-like, and this had some higher vegetation. I'm going, well, that looks kind of unusual. And I step back, and I'm going, I'll be damned, that thing's laying in a round ground depression. And I've only had a few cases of that. So the first case I saw that, I took soil samples from inside the circle and outside the circle. And I had them lab tested. I can't mention the lab name, but it's a lab for BLM for Colorado, New Mexico. They told me not to mention their name because they don't want to be part of this. But anyway, so I said, all I do is do analysis on A and B and tell me the difference. Just tell me the difference. I don't care what you come up with. Just tell me. And that's all. I didn't want to tell them anything else. I don't want to salt their investigation. I basically said, tell me the difference. And basically, the soil next to the animal, the cations, the CECs, or the solubility of the soil is less, meaning it holds water less than the solubility or the cations of the soil taken at the sample site. So now we have soil next to the animal that's been altered. Now you have a ground depression, and in some cases, I've picked up high EMF readings from UFO sightings. That happened on one of my episodes of Alien Highway. So as a microchip designer, I know that high EMF, which is high frequency radiation, right? Because I picked up EMF sometimes off of animals, that there must have been a high energy force that put that cow there. And that's why it wasn't dropped. It was placed with the energy source. And that happened. It happened a couple of different times, which finally changed my whole attitude of the cow was never dropped. It's placed. It's picked up with an energy source and it's placed with an energy source. I'm probably the only animal mutilation investigator out there that's making that claim, but I have enough evidence to at least back it up that the high energy field is doing it, because I picked it up not only from the animal, I picked it up from the ground, and the soil was changed. Not only here in Colorado, but I did tests in Missouri of a case where the animal was lying in a circle, and also did a test in Georgia on a mutilation. All three of the tests came out the same, even though the soil is different from Colorado to Missouri to Georgia. It's all different soils, so pretty cool.
Well, for
Okay,
what it's worth, mate, I followed you, and your work sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the questions.
No problem. Thanks for that, Kent. Before we get on to the next question, guys, hey, do me a solid if you're in here, go down the thread and retweet, get some more people in here. We got good friends, we got trolls, we got all kinds of people, but we're all getting along, right? So just raise your hand. And Matt, you were up next, I think.
Well, I think it was it
I
Ahmed
think it
up
was
next?
Ahmad.
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead, Ahmed. Yeah, I'm sorry, Ahmed.
Oh, no worries. Just want to thank Chuck, Shane, Mike, Chase, Toby. Great Twitter video or podcast and great space. So, Chuck, I'm kind of curious to learn more about just what it means to be a researcher as opposed to like a specific case. I'm curious to know, like, what's like the target ultimate product for you? Like, an investigative journalist like goes to try, they research something and they try to do a paper. For a researcher, what's the final product that you're trying to create? Is it a form of media? I heard you talk about TV shows. You do, and my main reason for asking is you're doing all these investigations and all that. Do you share your results with the scientific community? Is that something you've tried doing, or is that part of your goals, or not really?
That's that's a really good question. It's a really good question. I've actually talked about that a few times when people ask me why I do it, and I have to be honest with you. I do it for myself. That's the bottom line. When I first started doing it, it's my obsession. It's my problem. It's my thing that I want to find out for myself, and that's why I mentioned, during the podcast that sometimes I will go out by myself and do it. I didn't want anybody else with me. I didn't want to put anybody else's lives at risk. And I tell my wife where I'm going, and I just do it for myself to satisfy my own curiosity. And then what I do after that. My blog is 20 years. I mean, my website's over 20 years old now. So what I do is whatever I learn that I'm very comfortable with, I just put it out there and I just post it on my website as a blog, and it's just free. I don't make any money from it. My website doesn't make any money. Matter of fact, I'm working right now with a producer for one show from like History Channel that just wants me on one episode, and they want to use my investigation for free. Yeah, they want to use all my info. And I go, no, not for you guys, because you're making money off me, and I'm not going to give you my information for free. Yeah.
Don't do that. There's some slimy people.
Yeah, there are. They
Yeah.
are. And so I said no. And I said, besides everything that I've told you, I've already posted on my website for free for anybody to read. If you go to my website at ufonut.com, I've got over 100 blogs, and I've got some interesting things, some thoughts, some theories, and I always look for comments. When people say, "Oh, you're way off base," or "No, that's pretty, close," or whatever, because I learn from my readers too. Because sometimes I'll get a question, I'm going, I didn't think about that. Why? Because I can't think of everything, and so I'll get some good stuff. I'm going, God, I got to do that next time. So I can't wait for my next investigation to try that. And then if that happens, then I get any evidence, I post that too. So, and no, I don't. I make sure that I don't make any money off my website. It's basically I do it for myself. Just it's my problem. It's my obsession. I don't want anybody else to have to deal with it. So I just do it and put it out there.
I love it, Chuck. That's awesome. You
Thank
just
you.
want that personal truth answered. And then, yeah, sure. Why not share the fruits of your labor with other people if they're curious as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the same thing as when, like the producer I'm talking to now, it goes, we want this and we want that, and we want that. And why do you think that? And I'm going, look, I just, you have to understand that every investigation I do, it's my perspective, and I'm trying to be as broad as possible, not to be too narrow-minded of what I think it is based on evidence. And then I just put it out there, and then it's up for the readers to read it and to think for themselves. And if they go, hey, that sounds logical. Hey, that's stupid, and tell me, let me know if I'm way off base or not, because that's how I learn too.
In the same like school of thought of this question, I just had two small quick follow-ups. One is, have you tried involving the greater science community, or whenever you go to someone to actually analyze something, what's their response and what's their take on all this? How they
Okay, well, like a couple of my blogs I've sent to, what's his name, but Choco, whatever name, the physics
Michio
guy.
Kaku?
Yeah, I never got responses. So sometimes, send stuff out like that. I did when I do some lectures. I did a lecture a few years ago for the Mensa Society of Colorado, hoping to get some interesting information from the Mensa Society, and they were just overwhelmed. They didn't know what to say or what to do. I had one guy out of everybody that was listening to that was just didn't believe any, the whole UFO thing was hogwash. I wonder what he thinks now, especially with with what's going on through the Pentagon and Congress. But no, I do every now and then I'll link, or I'll purposely send some information. If I did years ago, I did a theory on time travel, and I thought was pretty good, that I sent that out to a couple of physics guys, just to get their take on it, and then they got a response back. So they probably just toss it.
Awesome. And
Put
just the
you in
last follow-up real quick.
contact.
Oh,
Sorry. I was just gonna say we can put you in contact. I know Dr. Michael Masters, who wrote Identified Flying Objects and the Tempestrial Model. He's a biological anthropologist. Actually, you guys might hit it off on the bipedal hominid type stuff too, because
yeah,
that's what he does. But he wrote a book about UFOs being time traveling machines and the gray archetype being us from the future.
yeah. You know what? And the blog that I wrote about time travel, um, you know, it's totally the other way around. It's what I write, or what I theorized about it is, we cannot time travel. We can, but we can't. We can't see our own future, and we can't see our own past. If we could see our own future, then we're no more than an I Love Lucy rerun, because anything that we do right now makes no difference, absolutely no difference at all, right? Because the future's already been planned out, because people can time travel back from our future. For all we know, we're living in the past, right? We're like the people living in the 16th century. We don't know any different. So I like to think that we're at the leading edge of our timeline. Now, quantum mathematics or quantum physics, whatever they basically say there's 11 different dimensions, and within every dimension there's thousands of other dimensions. So if you have multiple dimensions, then you could have coincident parallel dimensions that are parallel to yours, just because mathematics and physics allows that, right? And if they allow it, saying, okay, that's a plausibility. So now if we have a parallel dimension or universe that's parallel to us, time time is irrelevant. Time is not a factor that is stationary. You have, the fourth dimension could be, the fourth is based on time, and time is fluid, right? So if the next dimension, a parallel dimension to ours, is a different time, they could be 100 years ahead of us or 1,000 years behind us, being parallel. Now, if we could time travel, but we can't, if we can jump from our leading time to another leading time of a parallel dimension, we can see our future and we can see our past. But we're still separate. And that's the theory that I wrote a few years ago, that I tried to get some input from the other people that were writing theories of time travel, that were saying, time is fluid. Well, time is fluid, then it's fluid in every different dimension and every different parallel universe, which means, but I sure hate to think that that whatever we're doing right now, you and me are doing right now, makes no difference, right?
Yeah, his idea is like, people, these UFOs or whatever that are coming back, it's like taking a field trip to check out history in person, kind of a thing.
Well, that could be, and that absolutely could be. They could be, once you get advanced enough, and we're still trying to figure out black holes. Though we've just found another black hole two weeks ago, right? But for the longest time, black holes sucked light in, and then one time, on the Hubble Space Telescope, took a picture of a black hole with a little light jetting out of it. And we go, oh, okay, so much for that theory. I guess it doesn't suck everything in. So we're still learning. We're still at the infant stage of learning all this stuff. So you have a more advanced race of individuals, or advanced race of us. If it's just a matter of using technology to jump from a leading edge of one dimension to a leading edge of another, that's either ahead of us or behind us, but it's parallel, then in a form you're seeing your future, or you're seeing your past. Now the thing is can you jump back? Because if you jump from a leading edge, from one edge to the next edge, and one edge is 1,000 years behind you, but time's traveling much slower or faster because it's fluid than your leading edge. If you jump back, are you jumping back 1,000 years later because of speed, or a second later because of speed? So it's cool when you think about it, but it could drive you crazy.
If I could voice a quick opinion on it,
No, wait,
Hold on,
raise
wait.
your
Let
hand.
Hold on. I'm sorry, I started this whole thing off. Ahmad actually had one more piece of a question, and I want to make sure he gets that in.
Thanks. It was about the TV industry and your inside working with it. But you know what? I feel like Matt and Eric had more interesting questions. So you can come back to me after.
Okay. Okay.
I just was curious. How did you did you whenever you said the cow was placed? How did you exclude that a helicopter and straps didn't move it? And the second question I had was when you talk about you have 4 dimensions of length, width, height, and time, and the 5th dimension allegedly is change in energy density. And so yeah.
Okay, well, the change of energy density, density, that's something fairly new, let's say within the past couple of decades and that's why I was saying that, as we get more advanced in physics, for one person to say we can never do that, that's like us going back, 300 years with a big lighter and getting burned at the stake because but you're right, you have to think of energy too. I mean, E equals M, right? It's the whole bit where that's a consideration. But how does that affect you, or how does it affect your theory, is based on where your theory goes with that. If you kind of know what I mean, it's one of those things. Okay, it's baby steps and trying to figure this out. Energy, yeah. I mean, you would need the energy to jump, right? And then how much energy would you need to do that?
That's whenever you have a change in energy density, that's like your work function. That's your change in enthalpy and entropy.
Yeah, I mean, it's Newton's third law, right? For every action there's a reaction. So if you have a reaction to jump from one place to another, or you have an energy, what are you doing in reverse? What are you affecting? So to try to do a positive, you could be doing a negative. So it's really hard to really manipulate. It's all still theory at this point. I mean, except for microchip design and stuff, we know exactly, what happens when you're knocking electrons, we'll look at neutrinos. We still have no idea what a neutrino does.
Well, whenever I worked at the Center for Materials Chemistry in Welch Hall at University of Texas at Austin, we had chemical vapor deposition. We were trying to get 5 atom thick insulating layers of chromium oxide between circuits on an integrated chip.
Mm-hmm.
We would put chromium oxide into a certain UV light and vacuum chamber, and you would deposit nanocrystals and then you would analyze it with scanning electron microscopy and atomic force microscopy. Like, yeah, that stuff is cool. Like,
No,
that's
I
when
mean,
you're really getting deep.
well, no, and you are, you're a little bit out of my field of what I do, but that's exactly what it is. Now, what you did 5 or 6 years ago, may not necessarily be, the results wouldn't be what you get now because technology has advanced so quickly, since then and now. And I see that in microchip design. I mean, for gosh sakes, we went from, microns to angstroms now, and now they're looking at actually programming electrons or and protons, and now they're looking at biological, where they're looking at cells, trying to train cells as transistors. Now we're getting to AI, and we don't want to do that yet because we don't want to end up like the Terminator. A matter of fact, Tesla, Musk came out with a report just the other day saying, we need to really rethink AI and not step over the boundaries because we're getting to that point
Dude,
of our technology.
they're doing that with monkeys. Come on, they're like doing some programming with CRISPR of monkeys and with human neurons. I mean, you're gonna have simian revolution at some point.
Yeah, Planet of the Apes. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the other question.
About the straps. Did you?
Oh yeah. Because first off, it's interesting about the helicopters. Helicopters show up afterwards. They're unmarked helicopters, as if they're. And in my opinion, I'm thinking they're doing their own investigation. And now I'm almost 100% positive doing their investigation, because now we've learned from 2017 that the Pentagon's had their own budget for UFO investigations and everything else. So that would make sense that the helicopters are coming afterwards. Now, some of the ranchers that I've investigated, their mutilations, they see balls of light. Okay, they'll see balls of light in the area where the mutilation may happen a month later or a couple of weeks later, and they'll see balls of light afterwards. Not all of them, but it's really interesting that when I talk to some of the ranchers about a mutilation, especially from outside Colorado, I'm talking to them over the phone. I always say the same thing. Okay, just be honest with me. This is kind of a goofy question. Have you ever seen these balls of light or light floating around, in your pastures lately, or and oh my gosh, I can tell you the majority of them will say yes. So no, it's not helicopters. And you have to understand, ranchers are very, very in tune to their environment. And in the case with the 8 mutilation cases that I talked about that were in Walson, the week after the last mutilation case, there were 2 helicopters that flew over one of the ranchers' area about 1:30 in the morning, and they were running there. They had spotlights, and they were shining the spotlights down on where the cows' carcasses were. They were running their own investigation. So no, and as for strap marks, they've been cases where the animal's hide has been stripped, looking for strap mark evidence that you don't see on the hide, but you would see the bruising on the tissue under the hide. And not only were we looking for strap marks, we were also looking for injections, some type of a suture or something, So I haven't seen that yet. I'm not saying it's not the case every case. I'm just saying I haven't seen anything like that yet.
Well, thank you for your answer. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Good questions.
So who was next? Kent, go ahead, and then we'll get to Randy.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Chuck what he thought of. I've always had a problem with calling space-time, because I think space and time are 2 very separate things. What do you think?
I agree with you. It's like, time is completely different than space. And that's why I was saying with the whole dimension thing about time travel, that I don't think you can do time travel, even though, I'm actually, arguing with modern day physics that says, you can do time travel. Maybe you might be able to travel through space through wormholes or something like that. But time is so irrelevant or changes so much that but space seems to be constant. So far from what I've been reading, it's a constant. Time
I agree
isn't
with
a
you, by the
constant.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
time's not a constant, but space is. And the reason why I say space is a constant is because out of every meteorite that's ever hit this planet, except for something new now just popped up within the last couple of weeks, that the minerals in the meteorite are on our periodic table. So what we're made up of stuff out in space, our planet. But I was reading an article briefly that didn't go into much detail where they think they found something that might be a new element. So that could throw a hitch in that theory.
I think they found there's in Werner Herzog's documentary Visitors from Darker Worlds, which is pretty much all about meteorites and asteroids and stuff like that. Um, he actually says that they're doing a lot of study on quasi crystals for that specific reason. Like somehow they're being formed in space, and that's we knew mathematically it was possible, but I guess they found evidence in meteorites.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, the more our physics or science, and our science changes, geez, if not weekly, daily, all over the world, that we're learning something new. Faster our computers can calculate, the mathematics of someone's theory, or we get the information faster. It's really interesting because the microchip I'm on right now is. I can't really say what's it for because it's for DoD, but to simulate what a certain part of the chip does. I was listening to one of the engineers. He's been simulating on a computer for over 6 days. So his simulation program runs for 6 days before it can tell him whether or not what he's changing in that part of the chip and that part of the schematic will actually work or not. But back in the day, it would take weeks, even with a Cray computer.
Go ahead, Brady.
Chuck, thank you for taking questions. This is really awesome experience for all of us.
Thank you.
I'm a abductee, but so I have a friend that worked under 3 presidents. He was CIA, DOD, and worked for the Pentagon. He tells me during coffee talk, he can't disclose anything because he suffered the consequences, but he says that we had a nuclear bomb that was much stronger than expected, so that we have black stealth helicopters that are doing studies with picking up cattle, doing samples, and setting them down. I'm not saying they're all of them or they come in after UFOs do or not, but when I saw you on Alien Highway, when you talked about some of these sheriffs and some of these ranchers, it kind of brought light to what he was telling me. Because he saw the lights and everything, and it's kind of what they were seeing, and it's just kind of like I want to hear what your input was.
Well, okay. Well, first off, because I've dealt with a few people that are from CIA, and because I've worked on some DoD projects, it's kind of interesting that I don't. It's even though it's a good friend of yours or whatever comes out of their mouth, whatever they say, is very, very questionable. First off, and he could be telling the truth, but there's absolutely no way to verify what he's saying. I interviewed T.D. Barnes, who was the radar operator at Area 51, and everything he told me, he was told to say. But and he couldn't communicate. We all knew other things were going on, at Area 51, but he could never say anything about it. So you're right. They adhere to an agreement, right? They sign their life away when they leave the CIA or even while they're working for the CIA. There's certain things I can't talk about. My wife's uncle worked in Vietnam for. He worked for the CIA. We didn't know what he did, but after Vietnam, and even while I knew him, every couple of years, someone would show up and talk to the neighbors to see if he ever talked about what he did in Vietnam. So they're that strict even afterwards. So even though they're with the CIA, I always those information I always give it with a grain of salt. Now, as for the stealth helicopter, okay, that's just bull, and I'm telling you, it's bull because remember the terrorist, what's his name, that we crashed a stealth helicopter in his compound, right? Here we have the best of the best. We have, SEAL Team 6, going after bin Laden, right? And they're in a stealth helicopter, the most advanced helicopter that a SEAL team could use. And what happens? They crashed it in the compound and they had to blow it up. They had to, so they couldn't see the technology we're using. So you would think out of all the 10,000 cases that animal mutilations had occurred, that at least one of them would have left some type of human evidence behind it, pointing towards someone from our military, or just a human evidence pointing to something. But that's not the case. So the stealth helicopter theory went out the door when SEAL Team 6 crashed theirs in bin Laden's compound, in my opinion, because you can't get any better than those guys.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. He promised me he gave his wife a thumb drive. He does have cancer. He's in his 80s right now. I don't think he has much longer to live, but he doesn't want her to lose his benefits. So he does have the data. He just doesn't want to lose the benefits. So I'm hoping so I could disclose it someday. So
and I hope so too. I really hope so too, because that's how we're getting it. I get emails all the time from people that they're on their deathbed. Not lately though, but I've had a couple, and they just want to disclose what they experienced. But the problem we have now with the people now that you see on TV that they're former CIA agents, and the only reason why they're on the TV show is because they're former CIA. And the producer I was talking to last week, and he's a young guy, he's former CIA, and he can't tell you shit, because if he does, he goes to jail. So anything coming out of his mouth is questionable until you can actually have that thumb drive with that, with that information.
And that stigma is what needs to change. Is that we need to have pilots and everybody be able to come forward and say their reports without any repercussions.
Yes. Matter of fact, the Congress, the UFO Investigative Department of Congress has now changed UAP, and to not only to also include objects coming from space that fly through the air, that go into the sea, which we didn't have that before. And it's all because of pilots now, and it's because of social media, because the generation now pilots are at the point now where they're intelligent and smart enough and strong enough to say, look, you can't keep this from the public. I'm in a Y-22, or I'm in a Raptor or whatever, and so I'm in a Gen 5 jet, and I'm looking at this object that is there 1 second and gone the next. I can't figure out the speed. I've got LiDAR, I've got infrared, radar, night vision, or whatever, and the best of the best instruments that our fighter pilots have, they can't detect it. They can't catch it, and they don't know what it is, and it's scaring the pilots. And we don't have that technology on this planet, from what Congress is saying, because now they've actually included. They just talked about it 2 weeks ago, that now they're looking for something that's not human. That is these these craft that people are seeing. So now we're actually advancing and trying to figure out, or trying to understand, what us UFO investigators have been working on for years.
We're moving forward, Chuck. That's a beautiful thing.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, the ARO, what was I going to say? I'm sorry, I forgot now.
Sorry, it's my fault because I talk too much. So I apologize for that. But what I like is the fact that our government now is now recognizing and realizing stuff that us investigators have known and have investigated for decades, right? And it goes way back to J. Allen Hynek. He was commissioned by the Air Force or Army Air Force, basically, to investigate UFO sightings back in the 50s and to debunk them all. That's where you got, Venus and swamp gas. That all came from him. And then it got to the point where his investigation, he's going, well, hell, there's something going on here. I can't debunk this. I go, there's literally something going on, and these are UFOs. And what happens? He ends up going in, switching a 180, and he started a UFO group. Of course, he was fired, but yeah. So the more that science gets involved in this, the more they'll realize, oh, there's something actually going on. And it has been going. It's been going on for decades.
I remember what I was going to say. So what do you think that they like in Oak Shannon's notes that the 3 gigahertz signal was noted?
Oh, yeah. It's that's really hard to say because I think SETI's been kind of debunking that for years, years and they think that they had a repeating signal, and they say, well, there are pulsars out there that are causing the repeating signals, and so we need to advance our knowledge into the signals to make it more. What am I trying to say?
They're magnetars.
Not from the stars.
The FRBs are
not from the stars. The UFOs.
Yeah, the FRBs are from magnetars.
Yeah, they're these pulsating.
The 3 gigahertz UFOs. The actual UFO, not from a star or an extra planetary source, but from a UFO, like a 3 gigahertz interference signal or something was happening with those.
Well, I mean, and there was just information about something similar to that within the past couple of months where they think they picked up another signal. The thing is, we have a lot of people out there that will just, they just write it off going, oh, it's a pulsar, it's a spinning star, blah, 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 blah. You realize, our atomic clocks are actually set by a pulsar. They're more precise than our atomic clocks, and that's how they set our atomic clocks here. So, and that's an excuse. That's all it is. And what we need to do is we need to look at the actual 3 gigahertz and see if there's anything embedded within the 3 gigahertz, which you can embed information into. What happens every day, right? That's what Wi-Fi is. We're embedding information in a high frequency radioactive wavelength, or radio wave. So we need to look at those 3 gigahertz and see if there's anything embedded in it. But then again, too, what do you look for? We have nothing. We don't know what to look for. We just need to be creative enough to kind of open it up and try and find any type of anomaly within that signal, so we can prove that signal actually is some type of communication signal, or is it just a 3 gigahertz signal coming from a craft that could be energy, EMF signal or something, because that could be the case too. I mean, humans give off signals too. We're all radioactive.
That's what a radiant emission room, or that you can determine.
It's a good question. I don't, you talking about the signal itself?
No, the human signal, like the radiant emissions from a human body. You could determine that in a radiant emission room.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I actually wrote a blog about that recently called "I'm Chuck Zukowski and I'm Radioactive," and I go
Texas DPS even has a room that they can shut down. Like, you can put your cell phone in, and they can make sure that you don't erase the phone or something.
Oh yeah. That's a Faraday cage. And matter of fact, just a side note for anybody listening out there, if you have a remote control for your vehicle, that all you have to have it is in your pocket, and you touch the handle of your car to unlock it. Anybody now, there's people out there that can capture the signal from your key fob. Your key fob will be inside your house on your kitchen table, whatever, and they can capture your signal using an amplifier, and then walk up to your car and open it up because it captured your signal. So what you do now is you can buy this online. I have it here in my house because my daughter's key fob's like that. It's called a Faraday box. It's a little box, and you put your key fobs in it, and you close the box, and no one can capture that signal. You put your cell phone in there,
Well, they
you
have
can't.
purses and bags
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
you can put things in.
But now they're doing with key fobs. And so that's what a Faraday cage. Now, microchip design uses Faraday cages all the time, and we will take a microchip after it's already been completed, coming back from the fab, and you put it in a Faraday cage, and you run your tests. Your testing machines will be in there to run your testing and to see if it works properly, because inside the Faraday cage, you're not getting any outside interference. So you know exactly how the chip works. Then you take it out of the Faraday cage and you run it in the real world, and you see if outside EMF or whatever, affects your chip. These are usually, very, type of chips that are very unique for specific things that, generally for military or maybe rad hard devices or something. But now they're probably using them just for, autonomous cars. So they're becoming more common now. But yes, you're right.
If I could ask a question, mate, I think I saw the first news on that key fob capture signal technology about 7 years ago. Do you think would you agree it's been around at least that long?
Oh yes, it's been around. But the article I just read a couple months ago is in California. They're using it more now than they used to. And I think it's because technology is at the point now where it's easier to create it or get it, where maybe before you did. Of course, with social media now, you're hearing more about it, but the technology's been around for a while, and I'm sure the CIA had that technology where, but you can't open if you have a key fob where you actually have to press a button to open the door. It won't work on that because it just captures your key fob. It can't capture the function to open the door up because it doesn't know that function. It just captures the signal, for the touchless, door openers and stuff. I've even read too where some of them can actually capture. Once you capture the door, you can capture the ignition too, and drive off with the car. You can save the signal. That's a little more advanced. Yeah.
There was an interesting one on a car show. I can't remember the name of it, with Jeremy Clarkson on it, where one of the lads had the key fob inside the pub, and he went up and jumped in the car and started it up and actually drove down the road about 30 meters, 40 meters before it cut out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've known about that for a while. I have a Harley Davidson, and the key fob, you just put it in your pocket. You can start the bike up with it. And every time I go riding with my friends, and this has been for years, ever since that key fob comes out, I always lock the front fork. It has a lock, but some of my buddies, they would just, well, no one can steal it because I got the key fob. I'm like, don't bet on it. Lock that sucker. Lock the handlebars. Yeah.
My Indian had a PIN number.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. The Hardy does too, but if you capture that signal, then you've captured the key fob, and you can just start the bike up, and you can actually drive. I drove about a mile away from my key fob. I left in the house, and I drove. I realized, holy shit! And I turned around and rode back to the house and grabbed the key fob because I was afraid if I turned it off, I wouldn't be able to start it again. Yeah.
Hey, real quick, guys, do me a solid. Get down there, retweet, like, and I'll share a story with you. So tonight, when we were doing our first podcast, thank you, Chuck, for coming on. That was awesome too to have you as first guest. we had some technical difficulties, and I had to take a edible for my hip. So
Oh no.
when my sound went out, I didn't take that much. When my sound went out, I thought, "Oh my God, is that the edible or is that the sound?" And I couldn't figure that shit out. And I was like, "Oh, that's like surely it's not. I only took 2 little gummies." So I was just trying to figure out
Totally
if I was
ruined the show.
that high. But yeah, I have to have my hip replaced actually here coming in the next couple months, and I don't take any
By the
pain meds
way,
for it. So
if anybody's interested, the show is up on. Well, obviously you can watch it here on Twitter on the profile that I'm speaking on. We streamed it there, but if anybody's interested, you can click on our link tree in the profile, and it's up on Anchor, and then hopefully shortly it'll be up on Spotify and Apple Podcast. I am actually uploading it currently to our YouTube as well, so that'll be up shortly as well. I just want to let everybody know.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And like I said, it was a pleasure being your first guest. When the UFO Congress, with Alejandro in Arizona, Phoenix, when it moved to Arizona, I was the very first lecturer for that. So that was kind of cool for that. The very first person to lecture at the UFO Congress in Phoenix. And I remember that stuff, so I'm going to remember this now too.
actually, I'm getting ready to go
Shane?
down to the UFO Congress for the first time too for that
Yeah,
podcast.
we're sending Shane there, actually.
Yeah, I'm surprised Alejandro didn't contact me. He's been following me on Twitter and hitting likes and making these comments on the side, but he didn't invite me. But I have a lecture next Friday during the Congress, but it's here in Colorado it's kind of cool. I'm part of a vintage car club. I have a 57 Pontiac, and they wanted to lecture on UFOs. It's all these old guys that have old vintage cars, and they're really excited about it. So I'm kind of excited to go over and talk to them about UFOs and see what they know. Because some of them are former military.
Hey, let me ask you,
Yep.
Chuck, as far as the UFO phenomenon, do you think there's multiple NHIs, non-human intelligence, or just one?
Well, that's a really good question because I get people asking me that, how many aliens are out there, and I get people that some people that say, I've already talked to 10 of them and blah blah, whatever. I always say I just want one. I just want to find one. But I can tell you this though. Okay. I've talked to 2 separate Native American storytellers, one Apache and one Navajo. Okay. And I did talk to them at the same time. I talked to them at different times, a couple of years apart. But it was interesting that they both said the same thing, that there were 4 entities, at least at the Native Americans, at least the Navajo and Apache, these people talked about. And if I can remember, the Blues were these little guys about 2 feet tall, and I'll tell you about them in a bit. Then you had the ant people. The Blues came out of the mountains, and then you had the ant people who were the Greys, not because they looked like ant, because they came out of the ground. Then you had the snake people, which we call the reptilians, and they were the Blues took care of the earth, which are little 2 feet guys. The ant people came out and they basically did whatever they wanted to do, but they could see them. The snake people, the reptilians, stole or would take Native Americans, and they were SOBs. And then they had the giants, or what we call the tall blondes, or whatever you want to call the Nephilims, or whatever you want to call them. And they were a little taller. And then so the theory was that the tall blondes, or the giants, they basically have a condo here, and they come every now and then, and they right what's wrong with the other guys, especially the reptilians or the snake people. They kind of control everything because they're in charge. Now, I just wrote a blog on this. It was back in I forget what it was. Do I have it right here? I think I closed it. Anyways, it was a couple of months ago, and it was about leprechauns, menahunis, and Tommy knockers. And I've done some research and investigation on all 3. I was in Ireland about 2 weeks ago, just a vacation. It took 2 years to go to because of COVID, but so I did a little bit of research on leprechauns while I was there in Ireland. But both these guys are 2 feet tall, all right, and the Menahunis are 2 feet tall. They've been around since the early Hawaiians migrated to the Polynesian islands, and Tommyknockers go back to the 11th century out of Cornwall, England, and they're miners. And then the leprechauns, obviously been around for centuries, in Ireland. And so I'm looking at that as the blues that the Native Americans talk about, because the Native Americans also talk about these 2 feet type of, entities or individuals that control or protect the planet. And if you F with them, they'll just kill you. So you don't F with them. I got some really nasty stories about leprechauns. They're not just mischievous, kill you. If you try to take their pot of gold or you try to hurt them or whatever. And then the Tommyknockers is a form of a leprechaun. I think they're all the same species, but they're seen all over the world, which is kind of cool. Even our Native Americans.
Go ahead, Randy.
Chuck, you're a car guy. I thought you might appreciate this. My dad built a roadster that made the cover of Hot Rod magazine in 1952, and was voted America's most beautiful roadster. He had a bunch of trophies. He went over West Coast, California, won a bunch of first place trophies. It kind of was like the early looking Indy car type looking open wheel car.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was a beautiful car. So I thought you might appreciate. I
Who
owned a
has it?
2000. He sold it. His friend was supposed to not ever sell it, and we got married, and he sold it to someone else. And now this other guy has messed with it, and it's not the same.
Oh no.
My mother always was a penny pincher. I told her, spend your money, Mom.
Right.
And she died realizing someday was yesterday and not tomorrow. And I always wanted to buy a silver Corvette. My uncles had a friend that had a silver Corvette with a black top. So I bought a 2004 Corvette, and on it is someday. It's
nice.
It's just a metaphor.
That's right.
But we all as humans have to, live our life, instead of putting things off, and someday you want to be a UFO hunter or whatever you want to be, whatever your dream is. Today is someday. Today, we can handle the truth. So thank you, Chuck.
Well, thank you for that. I could never afford a '57 Bel Air Chevy because obviously they're really worth a lot of money. That's just what sells. But I came across this '57 Pontiac, and it's a GM. Okay, it's basically the same body style as a '57 Bel Air, but it's a Pontiac. But what's even more cool about this car, it's a Laurentian. It came out of Canada, so it's a '57 Canadian Pontiac, and there's about 5 in the U.S. And mine is completely original. I not a retro mod or anything, so I have to be real careful driving it. But they're not worth a lot because they're not a popular car. But it's cool to have something that's kind of unique. So my wife and I took the car out the other day because I'm doing a lecture at the Vintage Car Club this Friday. And so we took the car out. I took my civil defense radar Geiger counter, and I have a 1940s compass, and I have 1950s, a bunch of 50s cameras. And I took it out, and I was like portraying like J. Allen Hynek. And I threw some aluminum foil in the dirt, and I'm taking pictures of that. And basically, it's like what they did back in '57, and I made the pictures black and white, to make it look authentic, for the presentation. But I got thinking about it. I want to write a blog about that, about how UFO investigators have progressed, from just doing what, getting whatever you could get back then, and doing exactly the same thing we're doing now, except that, our instruments are different, EMF meters, night vision, more advanced cameras. So it's
and I bet you had a beautiful smile.
I tell you, but we've been doing the same thing now since the '50s.
Even the paranormal. Sometimes I just use a black and white camera, and a still shot, and you'll catch images that digital does not catch.
Well, I do, every now and then I'll use a film camera, but it's getting harder and harder to to develop film, and more expensive to develop film. Sometimes it'll take 2 weeks before you get it back. Now, I did learn something, as a and I'm not a chip designer. I'm on the back end. I'm a mass designer, so I get the schematics from the engineer, and I convert the schematics to what a chip looks like. But you understand how things work, and I can tell you that this is why we're going back to LPs, because you do get better sound quality from an LP than you do from, even though it sounds really good coming from, a DVD or something, or coming from a digital is false. It's a false sound. It's a analog to digital and back to analog. So they take in actual sound waves, they convert them to ones and zeros using software, and then they use filters to filter out the background noise and whatever, and then they convert it back to analog. So it's A to D back to ADA, so you can listen to it. But you lose portion of that video, or you lose a portion of that audio, because it's been converted into binary code and then converted back out again. But if you take a film camera that uses chemicals on the film, what you see is what you get. And so you'll pick up anomalies that you may not pick up on a digital camera, because the software on the digital camera is designed to eliminate the anomalies in the background to give you a better picture.
So Chuck, have you seen Dorothy Izat's videos by chance?
No, I haven't.
Ooh, I'm gonna link some to you, and
okay.
Yeah, and it's a great point that you're talking about the digital versus the chemical. So thank you. I just want to add that.
Yeah, it's I even have a 3D camera that that I use sometimes for ghost investigations. It's film, and it's really hard to get the 3D image developed. But if you use a 24 or 36, if you use a 24 film, you'll get 12 images with 2 images on each side. So you'll see a left and right of the same image with a line down the middle. It's kind of cool. So you look at it, you slightly cross your eyes a bit, and you'll get a 3D effect. And that's how, you've seen those on, on posters and stuff. The thing is, though, by using that camera, if you capture the anomaly on the left and not the right, then it may not be an anomaly. But if you capture it on both sides, then it might be an anomaly and not a defect. So, but unfortunately, when you use a digital camera and you're using, digital recorder, voice recorder, and anyway, you can filter some of that sound. They're getting smart enough now. Some of the ghost investigators are getting smart enough now, where they're trying to suppress the filters, so they can pick up the anomaly. But a nice digital camera, like the zooms, if you get an expensive zoom, you can actually go to manual mode and eliminate the filters, so you could pick up all the outside background noise, which is the anomaly you want. That's the EVP you want. But when you see people use cell phones on TV, and you'll see that sometimes on ghost shows on Travel Channel, the ghost investigators will use their cell phone. Well, their cell phone, they'll have apps on their cell phone. Well, the app is only as good as how it can manipulate your cell phone. It's not actually as good as having an EMF meter in your hand that's designed for that. It's manipulation of the software. And then you're holding a piece of a device that's still transmitting to cell towers. Even when you put it in airplane mode, it's still transmitting. GPS is still working. So you have a hot device in your hand. But yet they get away with doing that on shows on TV, and it's all like make believe. It's like you're not getting anything really.
Okay, Chuck. Me, you, and Shane are going Bigfoot and ghost hunting, and we'll record it.
I want to go too, just so I can make fun.
I do too.
Well, yeah. I mean, more than I shouldn't say that.
I'm just joking. I know very little about Bigfoot and ghosts.
No, but
my Bigfoot thing's always been this, that like obviously we've never found any bones, or we know Gigantopithecus existed 30-40,000 years ago, but we also know that at the end of the last ice age there was a lot of megafauna that died off.
Hmm.
So my thought is that
Interdimension.
no. My thought is, could it be some sort of epigenetic memory of when we did live alongside these things? So anytime there's a fight or flight or fear response in your brain or your amygdala, maybe that's what's happening. You're having some sort of like epigenetic flashback of when we did actually live with these creatures.
Well, I did have an opportunity at one time years ago where actual investigators they were in California and they were following up. Someone had found these giant bones in a cave in the Mojave. No, yeah, in not the Mojave Desert. Yeah, I think it was the Mojave Desert. And they contacted me and asked me different type of information. And these were other investigators that were well known at the time, and they went looking for the Native Americans were talking about these giant bones that they were finding in the caves. So these guys were out there trying to find the caves that the giant bones were in. Uh, so you have, you have that coming from the Native Americans too. You have those stories. Now, like I said, for me, it was like, okay, it's a 50-50. You know, I'm not quite sure if Bigfoot actually exists or not, but it wasn't until I saw the footprints in the snow. And then since then, had found other evidence too that something big out there is walking around. And I didn't mention this on the podcast, but Joe Fex, who trained me, who was a Bigfoot investigator, he had a Bigfoot investigation in the Appalachians in Tennessee, and he had a giant Bigfoot that came from a carnival. He owned that sucker. It was 9 feet tall, and he auctioned it off on eBay to fund his week investigation. And he also, that's why I have that particular casting of the Patterson case. I bought that from him too, to help him fund his investigation uh, to the Appalachians. I couldn't make it out there because at the time I couldn't get away from work because he was gone for a whole week. Well, the bottom line is he came across face to face what he was investigating. He came face to face with a Bigfoot. He was talking to his lady Janice, who lived off the grid, and her father became friends with a Bigfoot clan or family. Was the story, and then the father was gone, but the daughter was living in the same, little house that was off the grid, and they would visit her. There was like no communication, but they would visit. And they were cool with each other, type of thing over the years. And he found out about Janice and went down there and talked with her and actually went there. Anyway, bottom line is he came face to face with one. When he got back, it changed him completely. He was just a different person. It scared him. It changed him so bad that he lost his job. He got kicked out of his place. I had to bail him out of jail once. I had to pay his car payment once. I had to pay his. This is over a period of 3 years. This guy was out. He was lecturing all the time, and then he had lost it. And it wasn't until about 3 years later he started coming back and realizing, he met what he was investigating. He came face to face, and when he told me, he goes, Chuck, I don't know what the hell happened, but it was almost as if he could talk. We were communicating, but we weren't verbally communicating. Now, for someone, if you look at, you can verbally communicate with your spouse. It's pretty easy to do. You can also communicate with your spouse without verbally communicating with her, right? Or him, right? You just, you can kind of like read each other's expressions, and you can get an understanding. I think maybe that might have been. I'm not really big. I'm not keen on, the mental telepathy type of thing or being able to communicate using, mind waves or anything. But I think it was able to. They had an understanding, I think. But whatever that understanding was, it's, oh my God, it just scared the hell of him. One of these days, I mean, I should talk to him. That he would be a good, person if you ever want to get into Bigfoot. He's a funny guy. He was a pot smoker back in the day. Always questioned that. I go, yeah, how much pot did you smoke before you saw that Bigfoot? But he's a cool guy. He knew Alice Cooper back in the day, so he was a musician back in the day. So he was a pretty cool guy.
I think next it was Kent.
Yeah, I'll just jump in, guys. I'm actually taking off for lunch with the boss, so really nice to meet you, Chuck, and thanks everyone. And I'll catch up with you as soon as I can.
Are you throwing another shrimp on the barbie?
He's gone.
No, I live in Thailand. It'll be I'll probably have KFC, but it'll be good for the wife.
Well, thank you very much. I like talking to people from down under because I learn a lot. You know, you have your own the Devil's Triangle, I guess, down there too, so to speak, where a lot of things happen. Down at the tip, the lower part, I get emails from people from Australia all the time saying there's a lot of activity down there. So, not quite sure what's actually going on.
We could have an interesting chat. I followed you, so yeah, maybe one day we could have an interesting chat.
Yeah, okay.
Interesting stuff.
Well, go get on my website, ufonut.com, ufonut.com, and then at the top of the page it says, email, and email me, and then we can email stuff back and forth too. Okay.
Yeah, cool, mate. Okay, take care, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so it's about 11:42 here, huh?
Yeah, I think it is getting kind of late, isn't it, Chuck?
I just want to make an announcement too. Our first episode, video and audio, is available on Spotify now. So if you use Spotify, it's totally up there. So please go subscribe, leave us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, you realize I had to shave before I got on. I didn't know this was going to be video because I was camping this morning, so I didn't shave this morning. So I had to go
As that guy that came in here earlier said, Chuck, you look hot, so don't worry about it.
Oh my God. I got to tell you a quick story, just a quick one. So I'm a contractor, right? So I was contracting at Motorola in Fort Lauderdale. This has been a few years ago, and I had to get a haircut, so I went to, I forget, Dolphin or whatever mall it was, and there was just a haircutting place there, and the lady who was cutting my hair couldn't speak English, and she butchered the shit out of my hair, because I was going to Key West that weekend, so I just wanted my haircut, just to visit Key West, and he just butchered the shit out of it. So I go, oh my God, and I didn't even pay her. I could just see her, and I was trying to talk to her. She couldn't speak English or anything, so I go, F you. I just left, right? So I went to Boca Raton, which is a higher end, and I just got to find a salon or something for somebody to fix my hair because it was all over the place. And I walked in the salon. And as soon as I walked in, some lady offered me a glass of wine. And I'm going, oh shit, this is going to cost me. This isn't Sports Clip or Cost Cutters, And when I walked in, there was these two gorgeous women sitting right beside, or I sat down, they were sitting right beside me, and there was a guy cutting hair, and he turned around and looked at me, and he goes, oh Lord, oh my God, what happened to you? Ladies, you're going to have to wait. He's going to be next. And he was gay, but he was so cool. And he cut my hair. And I didn't think much about it, but the women had to wait. He cut my hair first, and then I paid my $50, $60 or whatever the hell it was. And I went to Key West the next day. I got hit on 3 times by guys at Key West. And I go, this guy gave me a gay cut. And I said, listen, hon, I guess I got to tell you that if anything happens with us, I can go to the other side. I got a shot at that, I don't have to leave you for another woman. I can leave you for another guy. But it was kind of cool. I go, hey, I was, I got pinched on the ass twice in Key West. And another guy asked me out, and I'm going, no, I'm married, Anyway, I thought it was kind of funny.
Ahmed, you're up.
What's that?
Ahmed's got a question.
Ahmed's, yeah, he's got one more, I think.
Okay, it's okay. I'm sorry. It was just I just thought it was a funny, cute question, and my niece is now my nephew, so I've been involved in the gay community for a long time now.
That's
Oh
awesome.
yeah.
I didn't mean that laughing. That's supposed to be a heart emoji, just so everybody knows. It's supposed to be a heart emoji, and I hit the laugh.
You're a jerk, Shane.
As long as it's not a heart-on emoji.
Whoa.
Ahmed, did you have a question? You had your
Yes,
hand up.
I did. So Chuck, I was kind of curious. In the podcast, you mentioned the experiences like with the television industry. It sounds like some projects went all the way to fruition, some didn't. And just as a guy who's never had any interactions in that space, I was wondering if you could just give us more insight. Like, do you have to have like a whole perfect pitch, or is it more like they just came across your clips, so they have like their own version of an A&R guy? How does the whole industry work? What are your thoughts with it?
Well, sometimes they'll actually hear me on a podcast, or they'll read something from my blog. This last guy from the History Channel contacted me last week. He just watched one of the episodes on Alien Highway, and he wants to do the same damn thing I did on one of my episodes for one of their episodes, and then use all my material. So I think he's just lazy. But mostly, and then one time it was a lecture. The book, though, that that came from the second season of Unexplained Files. The first season of Unexplained Files, I did a cattle mutilation segment, and they heard about me on the news, I guess, or one of the periodicals that mentioned one of my investigations, and that's how they contacted me because it went national. And so I did a segment for them. And at the very end of the segment, I mentioned my 37th degree latitude theory, which turned out to be the 37 parallel. And the Science Channel was running that. And they called second season. They said, hey, what's this bit about your 37th degree latitude? And I told them about it. And they said, well, can you send me some data? And I sent them a shitload of data. And they said, hey, how would you like to do your own episode? I'm like, are you shitting me? I get my own episode? He goes, yeah, we'll discuss your 37th, and you can talk to people who you want to talk to. And oh my God, it was great. So I got to pick where I wanted to go. Raw TV was the production crew. They were out of the UK. And I got to go. I was trying to get a couple different other people involved, that I knew, but I had to keep it kind of like we were within a budget. So one thing leads to another. So they found out about my cattle mutilation thing through just newspaper clipping that was about me, basically. So that goes into 37th parallel, that production finds out about my theory. So they asked me back for a whole other episode. Now that episode airs, and a guy named Bo Flynn from Flynn Pictures Productions that works with Dwayne Johnson, all his Dwayne Johnson movies, the latest one too. What's that one called? The superhero one, the Black Ant, Black Ant or something.
Black Adam.
So what happens?
Yeah.
Black Adam.
So Black Adam, thank you. And so that Bo Flynn Productions does that. So Bo Flynn saw my episode on the 37th degree latitude theory, or the 37th parallel, and watched the episode. And then he calls me up and he goes, yeah, I'm Bo Flynn. I run this production company, and I'd be interested in making a movie about your theory. I'm going, what? What? But first, we need to write a book about it. I can write a script about the book. I'm going, oh, okay, is that how it works? So they contacted Ben Mesrick. Ben Mesrick, who was friends with Bo, who had already written two books that went to movies, one about Facebook and one about the MIT guys that broke Vegas. So he contacts me, and so I had to hang with Ben Mesrick for 6 months, and he wrote a book about me, about my investigations and how I started. Then Bo Flynn hired a writer. The writer wrote for he wrote the first Sherlock Holmes movie with what's his name? Iron Man guy.
Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah. So he wrote the script for Robert Downey Jr. He contacts me. He goes, okay, I got to write a script about a book. And so I talked with him a few months, and then I had to sign my life rights over, for the theory for the movies. So a book I don't get money from. That's Ben Mesrick's, but he wrote the book so they could write a script. I didn't get money for that. I got money for selling my life rights for for the 37th parallel or 37th degree latitude to New Line Cinema. They picked it up. So Warner Brothers New Line Cinemas got my script. Then COVID hit, and that's the last I heard of it. But it's that question where, how do you get involved in this? There was no rhyme or reason to this. It was one person read a news article, contacted me. Another person, saw that segment, went to another direction. Another person saw that and went to another direction. And I still don't know how this shit works. It's just
I'm curious because like one thing that fascinated me most is I would imagine that like one of those like media channels where you have so much viewership, right? Such big accessibility. So they're probably like fighting off, like they probably have tons of material. They're just like fighting for what should we actually choose between them. So when you said that how they reached out to you, that really amazed me because one, either you have a very compelling story, and or maybe they're in this space. This is where they might not have as much material. Like one thing I'm curious to know is like what's their process of veracity when they like talk to you? Like, is that a focus of theirs or not as much? Is it more of just the story, that element of it?
the movie or what you talk about the movie?
Any of them, of just your overall experience, like what is their veracity process, or how keen are they on like on that side of things as well?
Well, I mean, it's really hard to say. I mean, at first it was like, they're really key on just the UFO aspect of it. And then if you ever read the book, The 37th Parallel, the very end of the book, there was that Ben Mesrick really couldn't say, but wanted to say, and he got creative and he kind of blacked it out, certain things. And I get emails all the time that people read the book and go, what does that mean at the very end? Well, basically I was talking about, Robert Bigelow, billionaire at the time, and how I crossed paths with him, but I didn't want to be, he's a billionaire and I'm a hundredaire. I have a few $100 and he's got tons of money, so I didn't want to deal with his lawyers. But yeah, the like I said, the book and the movie's just based on, an investigator and what basically how you go up the ranks to becoming an investigator, how you bring your family involved, and then the ultimate ending is the climax where you see this shit happens. And I mean, I've seen that. I've never seen an alien, but I've communicated with a light in the sky. We communicated back and forth for a few minutes. We were talking to each other. Stephen Greer's been kind of doing that for a while, but this is the first time where it followed me and my sister at the time and wanted to talk to us. And so I'm going, okay. But anyway, that's telling in the podcast that I said that's going to have to be a whole other story because there's a lot of things that happened right after that, even down to like an MIB type of person that showed up afterwards to watch us. So it was kind of, there's a proverbial line that UFO investigators shouldn't cross. And remember Max Spear? Do you guys remember Max Spear at all? Max Spear was an investigator out of Poland, and he crossed the line in one of his investigations and got into something he shouldn't have. And he told his mom that he texted his mom that I think I crossed the line. I got into something, and if anything happens to me, let people know. And then a few days later, he was found in a motel room with this black liquid coming out of his mouth, and that information came out because his mom released his text and stuff. He crossed the line. So as an investigator, if you come across something you may not want to venture any further, you let that inner instinct tell you. don't go there. And there's been a few times where my sister's been with me, and she'll just tell me, her women's intuition will just say, we got to leave now, get the hell out of here. And I can't explain why, but we have to leave. And I don't question her. I just leave with her. I go, okay, because, live today and investigate tomorrow is my attitude. Don't push the envelope because you you may not survive.
Yeah, you can't do much then, can you, Chuck? So we'll get on to Randy. Randy, go ahead, and then we'll get to Jage.
I'll be
You know
fast.
what's funny as hell? Just to jump in real quick. I actually ran into Debbie at Walgreens right after you guys had that interaction with the lights.
Yeah, it wasn't that something. That was December. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was what did I say? It was July, and what did I say? July 6, 2016, something like that, or whatever, but around that time frame. And the thing was um, we were going out to the area where you had your sighting. We later found out, but it's where the Roswell Rock area. That was the area where the Roswell Rock was found. And it was just, we found an area, we pulled off the side of the road, like a pull out, but but it pulled out a ways from the road. But as soon as I got out of my truck, because Debbie was with me in my Ram 1500 at the time, I saw a flash of light on my right side, and I thought that was unusual. It's a new moon night, and you could see all the stars. You could see the Milky Way. There's no clouds in the sky. And I saw a flash of light. They go, oh, that's interesting. Because here in Colorado, at our latitude, that sometimes the shooting stars or the meteorites coming in, they'll come in directly towards you, so you never get to see the tail. All you see is a flash of light. And I've learned that because I was a part of an astronomy club here in Colorado, and I was in an astronomy club in California. So you can learn little things like that from the other guys that have been wielding telescopes all their lives. And so I just assumed that's what it was. It flashed first, but then I told my sister, I go, hey, look, I put these LED lights on the front of my truck, and I have a remote control for it. And so if we're away from my truck and we need some light or something, I could just hit remote control, and it's good for 100 yards or so, and we can turn on the lights for whatever reason if we need to. And I go, but the stupid thing's got a strobe function on it. And I go, I would never use function because I just want to turn the lights on and off, but here, check out the strobe function. And I press the strobe function, and it goes flash, 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 flash. And immediately a light right above us flashed two times back in the sky. And it was bright. It was, I would say, it's as bright as the moon, not as big as the moon, but it was very, very bright that we saw it right off. And I look at my sister, and I said, what the hell just happened? She goes, I don't know. I said, I did that light just respond to my light? There's nothing up in the sky because we can see all the stars. And she goes, do it again. And I hit my remote control, and flash, 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 and then immediately two flashes. But holy shit! And I got the camera up. I'm trying to find, or my binoculars up, night vision binoculars. I'm trying to see if there's anything up there. I couldn't see anything. Couldn't see anything up there yet. There was two bright flashes, and so I said, I'm going to flash it again, but I'm going to wait a few minutes because I want to make sure it's not a strobe. So because I don't know exactly how much time the first flash from the second flash came from. So because we were all excited, so we did. We waited about 10 minutes, and then I did it again, and it immediately, right after I strobed, it responded. I'm going, oh my God, something's communicating with us. And then I started thinking, did that first flash when I first stopped and got out of the truck, was that it too? So what happened after that is that Ram 1500 that I had at the time, I had the remote start, and I had the key fob, the remote key fob that you put in the pocket that I was telling you about earlier, where you just touched the handle of the truck and the lights would come on, right? That's how it worked, because I could set it up that way. And it unlocks the door and the lights come on. We're good 20 feet away from the truck. And this shit just happened, and then we stopped, and I had flashed it again. Nothing happened, so I told my sister, I guess 3's the limit, And then all of a sudden, the cows started making all this noise from the ranchers around us, and then the coyotes started making all this noise, and it lit up. All this noise was going on, and a few minutes after that, it just dead silence, just nothing. And I could feel like the hairs in my arm coming up a bit, like, but I didn't know if it was just me or not. And then my truck lights come on, and I'm nowhere near my truck. I'm a good 20 feet away, and the lights come on. And I look at my sister and I go, holy shit, what's going on here? And there was absolutely no reason. I go, did something just touch my truck, or is there some type of electromagnetic field going on right now that the animals, responded to, that my truck now lights just came on. And then just after that, we saw a vehicle go by on that highway, that 2-lane highway. And I thought it was a truck or a car or something, and she thought it was the opposite. I forgot if it was I thought it was a truck and she thought it was a car, but we both looked at the same thing, and we saw two different things. It went down about a quarter mile, and there was a dirt road. It turned down the dirt road towards us and parked. And I had my night vision binoculars. I looked over, and a guy. Well, I just assumed it was a guy. It looked like, someone, a figure of a man, got out of the car and stood in front of the car and just stared at us and just watched us. And I couldn't make out anything because he was too far away, but I could see him with my night vision binoculars. And that's when my sister turned around and told me, we need to get the hell out of here now. And we did. But that's one of those experiences where, uh, did we communicate with something? Was somebody monitoring us communicating with it? And or who was this guy that drove over, that we didn't recognize the vehicle he was driving, and got out and stared at us? Was he an MIB? I don't know. So these are unanswered questions, but at least I communicated with something, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's interesting because that highway has been tied to sightings as far back as the 1947 crash.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been, locally it's referred to as the UFO highway.
Yeah. Oh, I got to tell you. So, my book, right, or the book that Ben Mezrich wrote, is the paranormal. Oh shit, what's it actually called? Paranormal Highway. The 37th Parallel UFO Highway is what it says, right? So, I got an email the other day from someone, and it says, "Hey, you ever watch Resident Alien, that TV show on Sci-Fi Channel?" And I go, I've watched a few episodes. He goes, hey, he just stopped at the 37th parallel UFO highway sign. The alien did. I go, what? So I found the episode, second season, episode 13, on Sci-Fi Channel. The alien is driving in the back of a car. Actually, two women are driving a car. He's in the back. If you ever watched Resident Alien, and it's a comedy. And they're just on this 2-lane highway, and he sees a sign. It says Paranormal Highway. No, it says 37th Parallel UFO Highway on it. It's identical to what the book says. And he goes, stop. And he gets out, and he makes a crop circle so he could communicate with other aliens. And he says, no, the Paranormal Highway is an energy highway. Well, that's how I look at the highway right there by Roswell. But that there's a lot going on there. You had the Roswell Rock, and then further down, because is that the El Capitan's little behind it, right?
Yeah, that's the road to El Capitan.
Yeah. So that's the area where I think I found the impact site for Roswell. Based on the debris, the skip site, and then I'm trying to remember her name, Mac Brazel's niece, Fawn Fritz. I interviewed her at one of the times we were shooting an episode. I got to interview her separate, and she's 3 miles in this direction, type of that direction. Mac Brazel might have found an alien body and some other debris. That's the area that we were investigating for Alien Highway, where more debris had landed there, and one of the ranchers had picked it up and hid it in a cave on his property. That's the place we were investigating for Alien Highway. And then further down is where the impact site was, based on the geologists with the rock hunters and stuff, and so we kind of knew where it was in that general direction. Well, it wasn't until I moved out here to Colorado, and I was lecturing in Denver, and I was lecturing in Roswell, and somebody had told me there's this lady Gail that has an interesting story about Roswell, and you need to talk to her. And I said, well, can you give her my phone number? Because they knew her. And she goes, yeah. And so she contacted me. And my wife and I drove back to Denver and Colorado Springs. I interviewed her in person. This was it's got to be 20 years ago or, 18 years ago. I can't find her now. I think she might have passed because she was, older at the time. But she told me that when she was a little girl, that the ranch that she lived on during that 4th of July weekend, she'll never forget it. The military came down their dirt road. They forced everybody to stay in their homes, and they were down the road for a ways, for a couple of days. They made everybody stay. They had armed guards. And when I interviewed her, she said there's these big strapping, military guys with weapons, like, are we in a war or something? And they forced them to stay in their houses, or on their property. Well, she told me that her uncle's house down the street, he had pigeons, and couple nights before, there was a bunch of noise coming from the pigeon coop, and he went out there to check out the pigeons, thinking it was coyotes or something. And off to his right, about a mile or so down the street from his house, there was a glow. And he goes, oh, that's why the pigeons, there's got to be a brush fire. I'll just keep an eye on it. Because those brush fires happen all the time out there. As it turns out, the military went past her uncle's house about a mile down. They picked up something and brought it back. And she watched them caravan back, and stuff was under tarps and shit. And that was 1947, July. And she told me where the spot was. So I think I have an idea. And Debbie and I actually visited. We went a mile down from her uncle's house, and we found something that was almost identical to what the rock hunters described where they were when military showed up, because they had seen the craft and they'd seen the dead bodies, and it matched the side of the hill, the little stream going by, all that was there. So it was pretty cool. So I have an idea. And I was going to talk about it for the 75th anniversary of Roswell this year. I was going to actually release the location. And I told the Daily Record what I was going to do it, but they never called me back.
You were talking to my GM, not me.
Randy.
Whoa! Shots fired! Shots fired!
Shots fired! Shots fired!
I'm just saying.
It was a lady I was talking to.
Oh, go
Hey,
ahead, Tessie.
Sarah Lee.
Sorry.
hey, Chuck. Oh
Hi.
my God, what a good story!
But
Holy shit!
and I actually have, and I have video of her telling the story that I was going to, put on my presentation, and I was going to give. I go, you know what? The 75th anniversary. I'm going to give the location of where I think the debris of where the impact site is.
Of
You know?
course,
Of
course.
course.
Oh, I
Well,
love
then
that. I love
email
all
me
this.
tomorrow.
Maybe the 76th anniversary.
We're gonna bring
Oh
more
my
people out.
God.
Email me tomorrow.
Hey, I'll
Hey,
drive out there tonight
yeah.
if you tell Toby tomorrow.
Dude,
So,
Chase
so.
slept in one haunted house, and this guy thinks he's like the fucking paranormal king.
How the hell was I the ghost at the haunted house?
Oh, it was a demon. Sorry.
Oh well, you know what? I don't know. I've chased Bigfoot, and I've been tracked by Bigfoot effects, and I wrecked by Bigfoot over by Golden, Colorado, and then I chase it, places where aliens are, the cattle mutilations. But boy, when I do a ghost investigation, that scares the shit out of me.
So
Chuck,
so
me,
how
you, and
how
Shane.
many of you guys are actually born and raised in Alaska, like me?
So, Tess, we got to get to a few other hands. I think it was JH and
But
then
now
Randy.
I live in Tampa, Florida, and I lived
I
through.
actually, sorry, I actually have been born and raised in Alaska.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah,
Who are
that's awesome.
you, ma'am?
I'm J8. Sorry, Tess. J8.
Damn,
Your
JH, you
test,
don't know your
right?
name, Jamie. You don't
Oh,
even know your own name.
hi. Where in Alaska? I was born in Sitka.
Fairbanks.
Oh my God. I made it as a walk on for the college basketball team.
Cool.
Right, go ahead, Randy. You got a question for Chuck? All right, let's try to keep the questions at Chuck while we got him here. Okay, guys?
Yes, yes. I just want to thank first Toby, Shane, Chase, and Mike for putting this on, and Chuck, thank you for making yourself available. When your Alien Highway show was canceled, I emailed the producers, and they tried to tell me it was low numbers, and that was bullshit. And I tried for you, man. You're an amazing story, and you're a wealth of knowledge, and just thank you for being here. I'm just love hearing what you have to say, and just thank you, Chuck.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And it probably was low numbers, I think, because they were targeting 15 to 20 to 23-year-olds. And I had high numbers from 35 to 55, so I didn't hit their target market. But I had a market that makes the most money in the U.S. So go figure that. I don't know.
I don't know. I think a whole bunch of us on that channel were watching you, so I don't believe their story. I think
What?
you were too close to the truth, Chuck, like always.
Well, you know what I do like. I got to tell you guys real quick, before we close up and stuff. The Alien Highway thing. What I really liked about that was 7 out of the 8 episodes were my investigations of stuff that was actually going on at the time. 7th, the one near Area 51, I hit them with, and they added some stuff too. But this we had actually active investigations, and I convinced the Travel Channel and the production company that we need to hit these places because we could actually pick up evidence because they were active. And when you do podcasts and have listeners and viewers as yourselves, and we hear about events that are happening right now, that's where I want to go. I want to investigate what's happening right now, so we can find evidence. And it seemed to work out okay with Alien Highway, and I guess Travel Channel didn't see it that way, but that's okay. I'm happy I got at least one season out there.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you
thank you,
guys.
Chuck.
Thank you.
You for.
And JH, did you ever get to ask your question? I know you had your hand up.
No, I didn't, but I put in the chat. I just hold on, I gotta send it out. Had it up. I'm talking, sweetheart. Hold on a second. Okay. Yeah.
Are you calling me sweetheart or your
I just
husband?
wanted to say yes. No, my husband.
Oh my God.
I have oh God, what was I gonna say? It's been a while. I yes, you can see the future. I've been doing it since I was 15, and usually is moose in the road. That's gonna be in the road. I've been really lucky and not faced very much stigma about it or anything. Usually, like over the years, like even my ex-fiance named it Moose Radar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just information from the future that saved me from a lot of accidents. And I've tried not to listen to it before, and and then either I was in an accident or I pulled up on a fatality, or that's actually happened more than once. So it's totally real, and there's it's statistically validated. There's a video by Jessica. I'll put it in the chat as well.
Oh my
So
God. You are blessed. Or
Well, the thing with seeing the future we were talking about earlier, it actually happened to me when I was very young in Safford, Arizona. I had got a new bike, and I had a dream that I was riding my bike, and then I I just rode it through the stop sign around the corner from my house, and another person, because it was a four-way stop, another person ran the stop sign in his car and hit me. And and that's the thing I can remember was, I was like dying. Well, the next day I was riding my bicycle and come up to that intersection. I remembered my dream and I stopped. And if son of a bitch, that car from my dream drove right through, blew right through that stop sign, and he would have hit me. Now, I'll never forget that. I've had a couple of dreams since then. Now, did I see in the future, or did I see a leading edge of another, parallel universe? That's the thing. But the one thing that I did see was something that was going to happen to me that had, that was, 24 hours left. So I don't dispute that because I personally experienced it. I just try to understand the future. Is it actually the future on our own timeline, or is it a future on a parallel timeline that we can see? And the reason why I think it's on a parallel timeline is because when you do ghost investigations, I've been able to communicate with people that are past. Now, you watch these TV shows, like the Dead Files or something. Well, I'm going to force and tell that person to go to the light, and no, you don't have any control over people who've died. If they want to come back and visit the relatives, they'll come back and visit it. You're just some goofy person on TV that's saying that. They can come back and forth how many times they want. Now, are they coming back and forth through another dimension? When you die, is your life force, your spirit, are we transversing, are we going to another dimension?
I
If
can
that
I can I can
Yeah,
also tell you something about that. I'm sorry to cut you off, but
that's okay.
I just my I did have a CPR event where my heart stopped, but it wasn't for very long because I was at the hospital when it happened. And I woke up 6 days later in the critical care unit. But I don't really remember much from my NDE per se yet. But my brother, he in April, he also in April of like 2019, he got hit by two vehicles and he died. And there was a trooper who happened to pull somebody over uh where they could see, it was on the way the roads were, you could see where they hit my brother. And then they had to wait until the ambulance got there and then get his heart started again. So he was dead longer than I was. And him and my dad, after he got a little bit better, like the next month, he was on crutches and he was going to eat with my dad after having surgeries and stuff. And this really tall man held the door for them. And they went into this restaurant and there wasn't very many people there. And that guy kept looking at my brother. And my dad kept noticing this. And then the guy asked, "You were there, weren't you?" My brother looked at him for a while and his eyes got bloodshot, my dad said. And then he said, "Yeah, I was there." And then the guy excitedly said, "I died on the night too."
Wow.
And they recognized each other from wherever they were while they were both dead after they died on the same day and the same time, April 9th, 2019.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and when I hear stories like that, I mean, I don't dispute. I'm not, playing a skeptic or a debunker, because one of the reasons I got involved in ghost investigations, well, one of the reasons at first was because some ghost investigations turned out to be alien related, and that's how I got started in it. And then I realized, hey, there's more going on here. And I learned enough to know that there's life after death. So I'm very comfortable with that. And I also learned that, when you communicate, are you really communicating? We, we call it a dead person, but it's just a passover of a life. And and so it's a energy. It's a living uh, energy source, that intelligent energy source that we're speaking with now. Is that our transition once we leave this body, that we have now. And yes, you can communicate it, and they can communicate with each other. That's why I think when we pass, we move on to a parallel dimension. And I'm just throwing this out, being analytical from an engineering point of view, because trying to throw some physics into it, some science into it, but still keep the paranormal side where we move over to a parallel dimension, and we can pass back and forth through this parallel dimension because we have openings back and forth. Because it's got to go back to the same thing where it's a for every action there's a reaction. So one action is someone dying. The reaction of that energy is the passover of a new energy to another dimension, and you can communicate with it. I hear all kinds of stories. I've experienced some. So, first thing I get from people is, "You won't believe this," or "You may think I'm crazy." No, not at all. Not at all. There's a lot of stuff that happens out there that we try to understand. Some people can understand it better because, like with you, I've learned over the years that women are very more more intuitive than me and some other guys that I've worked with, and that's why one of the things I lecture about is we all have ESP, but but over the years we've kind of commented it out. But we all have it. Women have it. It's called women's intuition. You have it. You've had some experiences where it's heightened. That Bigfoot has it because they never needed to delete it. They need it for their environment. They can sense humans coming. For the guys, we're sitting in our car or we're sitting in our vintage car, and you feel like you're being stared at. You can't see out of your peripheral vision, but you look over your shoulder and some person staring at you. I couldn't see that person staring at me, yet I felt him. That happens to all of us. That's that extrasensory perception that we have that over the years we've commented out. You have it, and it's heightened you. So it's cool. I like talking to people like you because I learn more.
All right,
All
guys,
right.
we're gonna
I
actually.
just want to say
Go ahead.
good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in tonight.
Yeah, thank you
I am
for
off to bed.
We're gonna
tuning
wrap it
in,
up.
and I'm hitting publish right now for our YouTube. So we're gonna premiere the episode we did tonight on our YouTube here shortly. If you're looking for something to watch or you want to rewatch, see what Chuck had to say, he shared some amazing stories. So check out our YouTube channel. Also, again, it's up on Spotify. We do have video podcasts up on Spotify, so check that out. And then I'm sure you'll see it on Apple and all the rest tomorrow. So I just wanted to point that out.
I'd like to thank Chuck for coming to the space afterwards. This is pretty cool. Everybody getting to ask you questions. I appreciate it, Chuck.
Love you, Chuck.
Good night, everyone.
All right, everybody. Really
Good night.
appreciate y'all.
Make sure
Good
you give
night. Thank
Good
you.
all the speakers a follow, and thank you guys
Give
for
Chuck a
coming.
follow
Give
too.
Chuck a follow as well, please.
Follow Chuck. Follow this Roswell. If you're not following me, this Roswell UFO Symposium podcast profile, please follow that. And if you want to follow my normal one, it's just at Mike Escape. So
Yes, and you're gonna want to give me a follow. I'm headed down to the UFO Congress this week, and I'm gonna be recording it all the things.
Best of luck
I
with
love
you.
that because I wanted to go so bad, but I couldn't make it there this year. But I'm so excited. Thanks, Shane.
All right, good night, everybody. Thank you for coming. And one more thing: if you get a chance, give Wounded Wolf a follow, donate. They saved my life, and I just got back from a nice trip that took care of my mental health. So take care, guys.
thank you. Love everybody. Peace.
Hugs and kisses.
night, y'all.